Here we are again, folks. This is Brother Peter with tidbits from the Word. We're going to be looking today in chapter 53 of the book of Isaiah. Now, chapter 53 of the book of Isaiah is the foretelling of the Messiah coming, which is Jesus Christ, the Messiah, Jesus, coming on the earth to be with you and I, and to save you and I, to give us salvation. Now, salvation is of the Lord God, through His Son, Jesus Christ. Now, I know because that I'm a lay preacher and because I've been around for years, that this is very familiar territory to me. But those of you watching, it may not be to you. So therefore, I'm going to go in depth to what Isaiah 53 is saying and how it coincides over into the book of Matthew with Jesus Christ. And what Isaiah says here, who hath believed our report? That's a good question. Who hath believed our report? And we say that today. Who will believe our report today of what this Bible has to say? Can be saved, have salvation, can die and go to heaven rather than hell when they die, because they believe the report that we take from this book and pass on to them. And to whom is the man who, let's start over again. I'm going to start over again. Report. And to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? The arm of the Lord, which is Jesus Christ. He was the arm of the Lord. The right arm of God was Jesus Christ. And He is going to be revealed in the book of Isaiah, and then He's going to come about in the book of Matthew. And there's 36 things in here that tell us about the Son of God coming. It said, for He shall grow up before Him as a tender plant. He is Jesus, and Him is God. Now He, Jesus, is going to be born of the Virgin Mary, and He's going to grow up before the Lord as a tender plant. This is going to be the second time He comes. He's going to come to the earth in flesh. Now, Jesus said in Proverbs chapter 8, that He was with God as a child, brought up before God as a child playing. So He already has been before the Father. But now He's going to come to the earth and grow up as a tender plant on this earth. And that you and I may be able to see Him personally in the flesh. Now, it was important for Him to come in the flesh and be tempted in all parts as all men are. And that's what He did. And He came and did that. At the same time I'm talking, I'm looking up a reference here that I hadn't got to yet. And He was despised. Many things are predicted in this particular passage right here. There are many things predicted in this passage, and I'm going to read them. I'm going to read through this with you right quick, and then we're going to back up. If you have a Bible, or can get to a Bible, or can get to Isaiah 53 in the Bible, I prefer the King James Version. And if you were going to follow on with me, that's what you really would need to use. He grew up as a tender plant, as a root out of dry ground. He hath no form nor comeliness. And when we shall see Him, there is no beauty that we should desire Him. He is not some beautiful person. I have behind me a big red Bible put out by the Catholic Diocese. I'm not knocking the Catholic, I'm just saying it has many pictures in it of Jesus as a child with a halo around him. He had no halo around him. As he was a boy, he looked just like all the other boys. He was brought up as in a person just like the other boys. When he was in the temple, he was no different than any other boy. Those priests in there and things didn't see no great shining light from him. He was like every other boy. But what astounded them was his knowledge. Now, another thing, when he was betrayed by a kiss, Judas betrayed him by a kiss, he said, these men went over there with him, he said, I'm going to kiss the one on the cheek that is Jesus. Otherwise, they all looked alike. They all looked much alike. And so he was not in his glorified body, and he was not shining. He was not a thing that was out of place. He was just like you and I. He is despised and rejected of men. He is a man of sorrow, and he is acquainted with grief. And he hid, as it were, his faces from him. Excuse me. We hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he hath borne our grief, and carried our sorrows. Yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. Now God was his Father. And how come God smit him and afflicted him? If you will, if you study the Bible enough, if you get you a good reference Bible, I mean a good one. I use a date myself, a good reference Bible. You'll find that God said, I'm going to hold his hand. I'm going to hold his hand throughout his life. I'm going to hold his hand throughout walking down the Via Dolorosa. And God came in the flesh, in this body, in Jesus Christ. And God said, I will be in him and with him. There was going to be a time when God himself was going to have to turn his face on his son while he was on the cross for 3 hours. Okay, he's going to, but he was wounded for our transgressions. Verse 5, he was bruised for our iniquity. I love that. Verse 5 happens to be, 5 is for grace. And he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. Remember, he got whipped by a cat and nine tail. He got whipped before he went to the cross for no reason other than it was prophesied that he would be whipped. He would take the stripes for you and I. It said, all we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way, and the Lord hath laid on him the iniquity of us all. The sin of every single man, woman, boy, and girl that's been born on this earth, Jesus took the sin upon him on the cross. He was oppressed, and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He didn't say a word, not a word. He didn't scream and cry and complain. He just took what was dealt him as from the Father. He was brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb. So he opened not his mouth. He opened not his mouth, he said nothing. He was taken from prison and from judgment, and who shall declare his generation? And I've got some marking here that's hurting me. For out of the land of the living, because he was accused and he came out of the land of the living. For the transgression of my people was he smitten. Now he came down on the earth, onto the land of the living people. God is in heaven. Jesus came to the earth, and where the land of the living people are, and he was bruised for our transgressions, and he was stricken. And he made oh, listen to this. And he made his grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death. Wow. Pardon me. Listen. The rich man gave his sepulcher, his grave sepulcher, to Jesus. The rich man gave his sepulcher to Jesus. And he also was with the poor and the wicked. The wicked were buried there too also. And everything that is said here in Isaiah 53, 39 things here, 39 things here come to fruition in this foretelling of Jesus coming. Let's see how many there was here. There was 36 points of suffering are listed in 53, and we find that by using a good concordance, a Bible with a good concordance. Alright, so with the rich in his death, because he had done no violence, neither was any deceit in his mouth. Jesus never, not ever, not one time, ever sinned. Not one time. There was no deceit in his mouth. Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. He hath put him to grief. When thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin. Now God made the soul, the living soul of Jesus Christ, the offering for sin, that we shall see his seed. He shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. Wow. I'm telling you, this is deep, deep, deep spiritual stuff. This is meat of the Word. How Jesus and God work together to do this thing. And he shall see of the travail of his soul, and shall be satisfied. By his knowledge shall my righteous servant justify many, for he shall bear their iniquity. He bore my iniquity and your iniquity when we were yet in sin, and he took it on himself on the cross. Therefore will I divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he hath poured out his soul unto death. He was numbered with the transgressors, and he bore the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors. This is Jesus Christ, the Savior, who walked on the earth. I do not understand, and I'll say this again in the public, I do not understand how the Jewish people could read this in Isaiah and then see that all 36 points that are right here were proven by Jesus Christ himself in the book of Matthew as he walked across this earth. Was every single one of these prophecies, 36 of them, were true and came true over there. You would have a better chance of winning $100 million lottery with just playing one ticket and nobody else playing any tickets, and you come up with the right numbers on just one ticket and you win. Hey, that's how astounding it was that this all was the 100% truth. Not one thing was left out, and not one thing was added to it. It's exact, just as exact as it could be. And Jesus was the fulfillment that was prophesied here. Now remember, we saw that he suffered for men, that he suffered the human as a human being. He suffered with the Father and for the Father, and he had no beauty, and he had no comeliness, he had no earthly glory. He had no earthly glory. Listen, he didn't even have a house. He said, the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. He had no place to lay his head but on a rock. He walked across this earth with no dwelling place. By rights, when the disciples said, we got to pay the taxes, and Jesus had the fish come up, and he said, take that coin and pay the taxes. By rights, Jesus shouldn't have had to pay any taxes. He didn't have any dwelling place. He didn't have a house. He didn't have any place he called home. No place was his. He shouldn't have had to pay taxes on himself because he was not located in a general area, even though he had to go to Bethany where he was born and pay that tribute. So here we have the total picture of Jesus' birth, death, and resurrection right here in Isaiah 53. Our time has come and gone. It's Brother Peter with tidbits from the Word. I must go now. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.